Our marriage had always been a paper arrangement, but when I brought up divorce, Sarah suddenly went ballistic. Not only did she confiscate my luggage, but she also called a locksmith to weld my room door shut at midnight. Even with her first love back in the country, she refused to let me leave, all because years ago I was in a car accident trying to save her first love. We married under contract, and I'd taken care of her for 3 years. Initially, she thought I was an admirer, only later did she realize she was a replacement. Now that I actually wanted out, the spoiled little princess suddenly turned vulnerable. "David, I can't live without you. Please, come back," she begged. At 6 p.m., I finished cooking a 6-course meal with soup, according to Willow Creek's tastes. At 7 p.m., I prepared a bath, placing her favorite roses and essential oils nearby. At 8 p.m., I put her slippers at the entrance. At 9 p.m., when Sarah pushed open the door, I rushed to take her coat, placed the slippers in front of her, and hung the coat in the closet. Then, I asked if she wanted to bathe or eat first. She glanced at her phone and replied absently, "Bath first." Half an hour later, Sarah emerged from the bathroom in a bathrobe, drying her hair. I quickly handed her her pajamas. While she changed, I reheated dinner and set it out. Sarah was so used to my care. Today, she seemed in a good mood, constantly looking at her phone as if chatting with someone. As I was setting out the dishes, I caught a glimpse of her phone screen. At the top, 2 words jumped out at me: "First love." I quietly turned away and went back to the kitchen. Suddenly, my phone rang. The screen displayed Mom. As soon as I answered, her voice boomed, "David, do you really want to divorce Sarah?" I looked out the window at a bursting fireworks display. After a moment of silence, I spoke, "Mom, you know that Sarah and I were together because of that contract. Now, the contract is over. Besides, Tom Campbell is divorced and back in the country. Sarah is so happy. She doesn't need me anymore." On the other end, Mom sighed, her voice full of regret. "You've endured so much over the years. I know everything. I thought what you sacrificed would make her love you. Oh well, since Tom Campbell is back, I don't have to worry about her anymore. 5 years ago, you gave up your chance to study abroad for Sarah. If you still want to go, I can help you arrange it." I stared, momentarily lost, at the cactus flower blooming. For 5 years, my life had been on hold because of Sarah. It was time to move forward. I nodded. "Thank you, Mom. Please help me arrange it. I want to leave as soon as possible." As I hung up, the fireworks outside faded, like the end of my 5-year marriage. I came from a poor family. It was the Campbell Group sponsorship that allowed me to continue my studies and win the school's only exchange opportunity. So, before leaving for my study abroad, I visited the Campbell residence to express my gratitude. Although I wasn't the only recipient of their sponsorship, I was the first to express my thanks. This made Mrs. Campbell, who had planned to dismiss me with polite words, take a closer look at me. After listening to my intentions, she was silent for a moment before saying, "If you really want to repay us, please do me a favor." From Mrs. Campbell, I learned the story of Sarah Campbell and Tom Campbell. Sarah Campbell was the darling daughter of heaven, while Tom Campbell was the beloved son of earth. Both were born into wealthy families and were childhood sweethearts, growing up together. Everyone knew that Sarah Campbell liked Tom Campbell. But Tom Campbell wanted a simple, long-lasting love. Finally, when both graduated from college, Sarah Campbell felt it was time to confess her feelings, but at that moment, Tom Campbell suddenly had a girlfriend and went abroad with her. In disbelief, Sarah Campbell rushed to the airport, but unfortunately, she had an accident on the way. When she woke up after surgery, Tom Campbell had hastily married the other woman abroad. From then on, Sarah Campbell spent her days locked in her room. A graceful lady had fallen so low. Just then, I came along, and Mrs. Campbell decided to ask me to help her daughter escape this love affair. To repay the favor, I gave up my study abroad opportunity and signed a 5-year contract with Mrs. Campbell. At a party, I deliberately met Sarah Campbell, pretending to be enamored with her and starting a crazy pursuit. From then on, the entire high society knew that there was a man by Sarah Campbell's side who loved her to the point of madness. Gradually, Sarah Campbell also got used to my attention, but never took another step until one night, she and several close friends placed a bet on a yacht. The person who dives into the sea and finds the ring they throw could be given a piece of land in the north of the city. I knew that she had lost sleep for many nights because she wanted to get that land. When everyone was scared and withdrew because of the big waves, I jumped into the sea without hesitation. That was the first time Sarah Campbell tested my heart. She hugged me tightly when I was pulled up, her voice trembling with fear. "Let's get married. I will try to love you," she said. But later I learned that she agreed to marry me that night only because Tom Campbell had just posted a photo of himself hugging and kissing his wife under the aurora borealis on social media. Even so, to complete the contract and remove Tom Campbell from her heart, I still tried my best to treat Sarah Campbell well. Knowing that her little dream was to watch the meteor shower, but her parents were always busy and didn't take her, I spent half a year searching for the best mountain peak to observe the meteor shower. But that night I waited all night, but Sarah Campbell still didn't appear. Later I learned that she went to find Tom Campbell. At that time, Tom Campbell's marriage had begun to have problems. Since that day, she traveled abroad once a week. Each time, she prepared all kinds of new and interesting gifts to send to Tom Campbell's house, trying to please him without letting me know. Then Tom Campbell returned to the country. In order to be able to meet him immediately, she drove too fast and had an accident. I stayed up for 3 days and 3 nights to take care of her, but when she was in a coma, she called Tom Campbell's name 999 times. At that moment, I finally understood that the mission Mrs. Campbell gave me would never be completed. Fortunately, the contract would expire in July. Tom Campbell had also divorced and returned to the country. Sarah Campbell finally waited for the person in her heart, and it was time for me to leave. From now on, both of us could start a new life. Seeing that I hadn't come out for a long time, Sarah Campbell got up and went to the kitchen to find me, only to find me standing there, staring intently at my phone. I came back to my senses and calmly replied, "Nothing." In Sarah Campbell's soft breathing, I lay on the bed, my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, sleepless all night. The next morning, looking at the Western-style breakfast in front of her, Sarah Campbell couldn't help but frown. "You know I don't like Western food, so why did you make these dishes today?" I stuck my fork into a piece of steak and put it in my mouth, chewing slowly. "Only these things are left in the fridge." Actually, that wasn't the case. It's just that I was preparing for my studies abroad, so I wanted to get used to the taste there first. Fortunately, she didn't care much. She put her phone on the table, but her eyes kept looking at it, as if waiting for a message from someone. Without asking, I knew who she was waiting for. Suddenly, the phone rang. She immediately picked it up. It seemed that Tom Campbell had sent something that made her very happy. The corners of her mouth, which had always been cold, now slightly curled up. I quietly looked at her for a while, then took out the divorce agreement that I had prepared. Since signing the contract, I had prepared for this moment. Now, I was finally free. "Sarah, let's get a divorce," I said calmly, my tone as calm as if I were talking about the weather today. Sarah Campbell was busy texting Tom Campbell and didn't bother to listen to what I was saying. She just hummed in response. I wasn't surprised, because for 5 years, she had always treated me like this, with an indifferent attitude. Now that Tom Campbell had returned, she had taken back the last bit of attention she had given me. I turned to the last page of the agreement, put both the pen and paper in front of her, and pointed to the signature line. "Sign here." She was still busy texting, not bothering to look, with one hand holding the pen and pointed to the place where I was pointing, the other hand continuing to type on the phone. I put away the agreement and then continued, "Sarah Campbell, after a month of consideration, I will leave." Sarah Campbell said again, then put down her knife and fork, stood up, and was about to leave. Looking at her back, I finally couldn't help but call out, "Sarah, do you know what I just said?" She stopped, frowned, and looked at me, not understanding. Isn't it about sending items to the orphanage? The contract you just asked me to sign is also about that, isn't it? What's wrong? I smiled bitterly in my heart. The contract about charitable items, I had asked her to sign it last month. Sure enough, she didn't care about me or listen to what I said. But it didn't matter anymore. Let's leave it at that. Sarah, please live well with Tom Campbell in the future, I smiled. It's nothing. That afternoon, I drove behind the truck carrying items to the orphanage. After finishing everything, I went to the director's office to say goodbye. Director, I'm going to study abroad. Hearing this, the director was very happy for me. I was originally an outstanding student in the art department. Back then, when I gave up the opportunity to study abroad, I also regretted it for a long time. David, that's great, the director grabbed my hand and smiled brightly. But then he suddenly remembered something, his expression worried, but if you go to study abroad, won't you have to be apart from Sarah? It's been so difficult to get to this point. I looked at the children playing in the distance and shook my head, it's not separation. We're divorced. The director froze, then sighed, sure enough, I wasn't wrong. Your marriage couldn't last. If she really loved you, how could she not come to visit you once in so many years? It's good to get a divorce. I smiled and hugged the director. Yes, divorce is really good. Returning from the orphanage, I went straight upstairs to the dressing room and started packing my luggage. It was at this moment that I realized my clothes were pitifully few, only a few sets that Mrs. Campbell had given me when I first got married. And Sarah Campbell, the person I had been married to for 5 years, had never thought of buying me even a single piece of clothing. After packing my clothes, I took all the gifts I had given to Sarah Campbell over the years and sold them to the junk collector. Over the years, in order to please her, I had prepared many thoughtful birthday gifts, but they had never been looked at even once. All of them were thrown aside, covered with a thick layer of dust. Watching the junk truck leave, I was about to return to the villa when I heard the sound of a car horn behind me. Turning around, I saw a Maybach parked in front of me. A woman in a red dress got out of the car. It was my wife's younger sister, Tiffany Campbell. Tiffany looked at the junk truck leaving, snorted disdainfully, then looked me up and down. Sure enough, you're a country bumpkin. You even sell the cardboard boxes. I didn't bother to look at her and turned to leave. The mocking smile on Tiffany's face suddenly disappeared. She stepped forward and tried to grab me. David, since you entered the Campbell family, you've always been bowing and scraping and flattering us. We've never dared to show such a cold attitude. How dare you treat me like this now? Are you deaf? I'm talking to you, and you can't hear me? I turned around, shook off her hand, my eyes flashing with annoyance. Tiffany had always hated me, thinking that with my status, I was completely unworthy of entering the Campbell family. So, for 5 years after we got married, she always tried to make things difficult for me, sometimes spilling the breakfast I made, sometimes trampling on the clothes I washed. Now that I was finally about to be free, I didn't want to bow and scrape before her anymore. Tiffany was about to continue causing trouble, but then, as if she suddenly remembered something interesting, she looked at me and sneered, "It's good for you to sell a few more cardboard boxes. You still don't know, do you? My sister's first love has returned. The rat occupying the bird's nest will finally have to scram." As soon as she finished speaking, a man in a white shirt got out from behind her. This was the first time I had met Tom Campbell. He was indeed very handsome. The broken marriage of the past 5 years seemed to have left no trace on him. It was no wonder that Sarah Campbell still missed him so much for so many years. Tom Campbell stepped forward and gently pulled Tiffany's hand. "Tiffany, don't say that. David is still your brother-in-law." "Brother-in-law, what are you talking about? I already told you in the car that my sister has always loved you all these years. She still misses you every week. She goes abroad once to find you. All those gifts were bought by my sister for you. Haven't you realized my sister's feelings for you?" After saying that, Tiffany turned to me and ordered, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and bring Tom's luggage in." My sister has agreed to let Tom stay here. I glanced at the pile of luggage, ignored it, and walked straight inside. This made Tiffany so angry that she stomped her feet. In the end, the driver had to carry the luggage in. Tiffany was just about to get angry again when Sarah Campbell hurried in. Her eyes stopped on Tom Campbell, who was sitting properly on the sofa, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. She turned to me and said, "Tom Campbell's house has been vacant for a long time and needs to be renovated, so he will stay here for a few days during this time." In the silent atmosphere, Tom Campbell stood up, his face full of worry. "Sarah, why don't I go somewhere else? After all, this is your house." "David seems unhappy." Sarah Campbell immediately raised her hand to stop him. "You don't need to go anywhere. He's always generous and won't be angry about such a small matter." I quietly watched this scene and finally spoke up, a smile on the corners of my mouth. "I'm really not angry about this small matter. Tom, just stay here. After all, this house will belong to Tom Campbell sooner or later." As if afraid that Tom Campbell would leave, Sarah Campbell immediately ordered the servant to bring his luggage into the largest living room. Tiffany immediately turned to look at me triumphantly. "It's already this time, what are you still standing here for? Hurry up and cook dinner." "Oh, and Tom Campbell can't eat spicy food, so make it a little bland." Although there are servants in this house, I have always cooked alone, just because Sarah Campbell has high requirements and is picky about food. Even the food cooked by Michelin chefs, she doesn't want to eat. Only the food I cook is she reluctantly willing to eat. But no matter how hard I try, Sarah Campbell only eats a few bites. Occasionally, Tiffany also comes to eat, but she always eats while complaining. At this moment, I shook my head gently and said 4 words that surprised everyone. "I can't cook." Hearing me refuse, Sarah Campbell instinctively looked at me. In her memory, I had never retorted to the Campbell family. This was the first time I had refused. She was just about to open her mouth when Tom Campbell next to her suddenly turned red and his eyes brightened. "It's my fault. I shouldn't be here. After all, I'm just an outsider. I shouldn't let David have to cook for me." After saying that, he was about to go upstairs to pack his luggage, but Sarah Campbell pulled him back. "It has nothing to do with you." Then she turned to look at me, her voice slightly reproachful. "Didn't you say you weren't angry? What's the meaning of this now?" I gently raised my hand. The index and ring fingers were both bandaged. "I'm injured. I can't touch water during this time." In fact, I wasn't injured at all. It's just that the contract was over. I didn't want to waste my energy on Sarah Campbell anymore, so I deliberately put on a few bandages. To push back on cooking duty, I showed my bandaged hands as an excuse, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. I had always taken care of everything at home, so the servants in the villa went home on time. Now, no one besides me knew how to cook. Even if they called the servants back, it would be too late. Tiffany frowned unhappily, her voice full of complaint. "Why didn't you say you were hurt earlier? Were you trying to make us starve?" She was about to step forward and scold me, but Tom Campbell quickly pulled her back. "Tiffany, don't be like that." Tom Campbell looked at Sarah beside him. "Willow Creek, my little sister has been abroad for so long, and I still remember the hot pot place at the entrance of our high school. We used to go there after evening self-study. Let's go there for hot pot tonight." Sarah Campbell naturally didn't refuse Tom Campbell's suggestion. She said gently, "Okay, I'll take you." As the group left, they conveniently took me along. On the way, Sarah Campbell drove while chatting with the 2 people in the back about their high school days. Tom Campbell became more and more happy as he spoke, and Tiffany Campbell would occasionally interject a few words. When they got to a happy point, all 3 couldn't help but laugh. Halfway through, Tom Campbell suddenly seemed to remember something and smiled at me in the passenger seat. "David, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to leave you out. It's just that you didn't participate in those memories." Not only those memories I did not participate, but later, their lives I would not participate either. I hummed and then quietly closed my eyes. Sarah Campbell rarely gave me a glance, somehow feeling that I seemed to have become different. After parking, I excused myself to go to the bathroom first. I splashed cold water on my hands and patted it on my face, looking up at myself in the mirror. The handsome face still couldn't hide the fatigue between my eyebrows. The Tom Campbell's eyes were filled with vigor, while mine clearly showed exhaustion. "Just try a little harder, and you'll be completely free," I said to myself. When I returned to the private room, the three of them had already ordered. "The hot pot soup has to be clear, okay? Tom can't eat meat, so add more vegetables, except for cilantro." Sarah Campbell looked at the menu and instructed the waiter next to her. Even after so many years, she still remembered Tom Campbell's tastes so clearly. "David, do you have any preferences?" This was the first time in 5 years that she had asked about my tastes. I sat on the other side and pulled out a piece of paper to wipe the dishes in front of me. "Anything is fine except for seafood." During the hot pot meal, Sarah Campbell only paid attention to Tom Campbell next to her. She didn't eat much, only constantly picking food for him. While they were eating, an argument suddenly broke out at the table next to them. In the end, the situation became more and more tense. They even stood up and started fighting. The surrounding customers all stood up to try to stop them, but unexpectedly, one of them with a hot temper suddenly lifted the boiling hot pot and splashed it toward the other party. The other person hurriedly dodged, but due to the direction, the hot pot was splashed toward our table. Amid the screaming, Sarah Campbell instinctively leaned over and hugged Tom Campbell to protect him. I didn't have time to dodge, only knowing to stare with wide eyes as the boiling hot pot soup headed straight toward me. In an instant, my whole body was soaked in hot pot soup. My arms immediately turned red and were covered with blisters. The stinging sensation was like thousands of tiny needles piercing my body, so painful that I couldn't say a word. "David." Sarah Campbell hurriedly let go of Tom Campbell and stepped toward me. For the first time, panic was revealed in her eyes. "Does it hurt? I'll take you to the hospital, okay?" I looked up at her, the pain spreading throughout my body, but I did my best and I could not utter a word. "Oh my God, Tom Campbell. How could you be so badly injured?" Tiffany Campbell, as soon as she heard it, immediately shifted her attention to Tom Campbell. She became even more panic-stricken and hurriedly ran in front of him, only seeing a few drops of hot pot oil on his arm, looking very scary. Tom Campbell pulled back his hand and shook his head. "I'm fine. It seems that David is hurt more seriously. You should take him to the hospital first." "How could it not be serious? You've been pampered since you were little. As long as there's a little scratch, you'll be in pain all day. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and take Tom Campbell to the hospital," Tiffany Campbell said anxiously. She didn't forget to raise her hand and warn the group of people, "Hey, are you guys okay in the head? If you want to argue, go outside and argue. If you hurt Tom Campbell, my sister won't let you guys off the hook." At this time, Tom Campbell also couldn't bear the pain. He inhaled a cold breath, but still tried to say, "It's okay, Willow Creek, you should still go check on David. He's injured much more seriously." This expression clearly made her feel sorry for him. She no longer paid attention to me, who was drenched and flustered. She pulled Tom Campbell out first. Before leaving, she seemed to have suddenly remembered something, turned back to look at me with a regretful expression. "Tom Campbell has been sensitive since he was young and is very afraid of pain. This is also near the hospital. You can take a taxi to the hospital yourself, okay?" It wasn't until the figures of the three of them disappeared from my sight that I came back to my senses. I struggled to endure the pain while breathing heavily. Seeing that I was so seriously injured but was still abandoned, the waiter next to me sympathetically came over and apologized while helping me treat the wounds on my body. After taking pain medication, the pain in my body finally eased a bit. At least I was no longer in so much pain that I couldn't speak. I borrowed a set of clothes from the waiter to change into, and only then did I shakily walk out and take a taxi to the hospital. Dr. Campbell, while pressing on the blisters, instructed me to apply medicine every day so that I wouldn't leave scars. I was in so much pain that I had to close my eyes tightly. Next to me, two nurses were pushing a small cart and walking past me, chatting with each other. I think Director Campbell treats Tom really well. Just a few drops of hot pot oil splashed on him, and she rented out the entire floor and called all the dermatology experts to come for consultation. It's just such a small wound. A little late, and it would almost be healed. I wish I also had a soulmate who loved me like that. Haha, stop dreaming. Such a woman is only seen once in 10,000 years. 10,000 years to meet one. I smiled faintly, leaving a seriously injured husband to take care of another person with a minor injury. She was indeed someone who was only seen once in 10,000 years. It wasn't until all the wounds on my body were bandaged that I thanked the doctor and got up to leave. Just as I walked out of the hospital door, my phone suddenly displayed a message. Opening it to take a look, it turned out to be an admission notice from the foreign university I had applied to. They reminded me that when I came to the school to register, I needed to prepare an admission artwork. After 5 years, I once again picked up a paintbrush. After buying paintbrushes and paints, I didn't go to the Campbell residence but went to Blue Moon Mountain. The scenery of Blue Moon Mountain was very beautiful. The vast lake lay between the mountain ranges. The surface of the water was as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the surrounding mountains like a natural painting, making people feel at ease. I took a deep breath, and the suppression of the past 5 years vanished in an instant, leaving only a feeling of freedom that I hadn't felt in a long time. Inspiration suddenly popped up in my head, and the pen touched the blank paper. In an instant, a beautiful landscape painting gradually appeared on the paper. There was no noise, no smog, only the sound of birds singing throughout the mountains and the gentle wind blowing. For 3 consecutive days, I indulged in this beautiful painting. It wasn't until I went down the mountain to send the painting to the school that I turned on my phone. As soon as I turned it on, countless missed calls and messages appeared, filling the screen. All of them were from Sarah Campbell. This was something that had never happened before. In the past, only I called and texted her. She had never called me, not even called back missed calls. Just as I was stunned, Tiffany Campbell's phone called. As soon as I answered, her grating voice rang out from the other end. "David, where have you been these past few days? Do you know that my sister has been going crazy looking for you? Don't think that doing this will attract my sister's attention. Dream on. The position of male master of the Campbell family can only belong to Tom Campbell." After saying that, Tiffany hung up. Only I frowned. Did I hear wrong? Sarah Campbell was frantically looking for me? What was she looking for me for? I wanted to ask Tiffany again to see if there was any mistake, but the 108 missed calls on the phone did indeed show Sarah Campbell's urgency when looking for me. With this confusion, I carried the drawing board back home. As soon as I got out of the car, the servant in the villa ran out to greet me, his face full of joy as if he had just escaped a disaster. Some people were even almost crying. "Master, you're finally back. These past few days, ever since you weren't at home, the whole house has been in a mess. Whatever we do, the director isn't satisfied. She's been furious for days." Only now did I understand that it turned out that it was because she was missing my care that she wasn't used to it. But she should get used to it. After all, I was about to leave completely. The rest of her life, she would have to live without me. I comforted the servant a little and then walked into the villa. I saw that even the lights weren't turned on inside. Sarah Campbell was sitting alone on the sofa. Hearing the sound of footsteps, the woman finally raised her head. She looked at me intently for a long time, her voice a little unhappy. "Where have you been these past few days?" While taking off my jacket, I gently replied, "I went to the mountains to find inspiration for painting." The woman frowned. "Why are you suddenly interested in painting?" "It's not sudden. I was originally an outstanding student in the art department. If it wasn't for wanting to repay a favor, I would have gone to study abroad a long time ago and become a good painter. But these things, I didn't say to Sarah Campbell. I just picked up a glass of water and took a sip, my tone very indifferent. I suddenly wanted to paint. Hearing this, Sarah Campbell frowned. About the hot pot thing the other day, I didn't intentionally abandon you. It's just that Tom Campbell has been spoiled since he was young and is very afraid of pain. As long as there's a little scratch, he'll cry for days. I and he grew up together and am used to taking care of him, so I took him to the hospital first. Besides, you didn't object at the time, so why did you run away like this? Tom Campbell's house has also been renovated, and he has moved out. In the future, don't be angry over such a small matter. As she spoke, her voice was a little reproachful, not knowing if she was blaming me for running away or blaming me for not being tolerant, causing the person she loved to move out early. But I didn't care anymore. I hummed and then put down the glass, intending to go upstairs when I heard Sarah Campbell's voice from behind. David, I'm hungry. Can you cook me a bowl of noodles? I continued to raise my bandaged left hand. Did you forget that my hand is also injured? Sarah Campbell frowned slightly, but I didn't pay attention to her reaction. I turned and went upstairs. On the day I just came out of the room, an expensive watch was brought to my eyes. Looking up, I saw Sarah Campbell standing in front of me, not understanding what was going on. Sarah Campbell cleared her throat. About the hot pot thing the other day, I was busy taking care of Tom Campbell and didn't have time to care about you. This is to compensate you. I looked at the expensive watch in the box, my eyes flashing with complexity. 5 years. Right, 5 years. This was the first time she had given me a gift, yet it was to compensate me, compensate for being busy taking care of her first love and neglecting me. I suddenly remembered the pile of gifts in her study, those gifts that were carefully prepared for Tom Campbell. A sense of bitterness rose in my heart, but it was quickly extinguished by me. Those gifts that I never dared to dream of before, I don't need them now either. Seeing that I hadn't received it for a long time, she didn't think much of it, only thinking that I didn't like the gift. I was busy with Tom Campbell's stuff, so I asked my assistant to go to the auction and choose the most expensive one. If you don't like, before Sarah Campbell could finish speaking, Tiffany's voice rang out from outside the door. Tom Campbell, I already told you that my sister likes you so much. You shouldn't move out. Now that you've moved out, you should come to play often. As she spoke, she pulled Tom Campbell in. When she saw the watch in my hand, she exclaimed excitedly, "Oh my God, Tom Campbell, you just told me that you really like this watch. I didn't expect David to be able to buy it." After saying that, she looked at Tom Campbell next to her, her eyes full of admiration. Hearing this, Tom Campbell seemed happy and looked at Sarah Campbell. I saw the hesitation in Sarah Campbell's eyes. Without thinking, I directly took the watch from my hand and gave it to Tom Campbell. "Since it was bought for you, then you should take it." Just one sentence helped Sarah Campbell make a choice, resolving her hesitation. This was the first time that Sarah Campbell's eyes didn't stop on Tom Campbell and couldn't help but look toward me. For some reason, seeing my generosity, Sarah Campbell for the first time felt a little uncomfortable. She felt that I was different from before, but couldn't say clearly where the difference was. A week later, it was the day that the divorce consideration period ended. I could finally leave. I started packing my luggage. I was halfway through packing when Sarah Campbell's assistant brought a high-end formal dress, telling me to go to the old villa to attend a party. Looking at the formal dress, I suddenly felt it was funny. Legally, our marital relationship had ended, yet Sarah Campbell still didn't know at all. I intended to refuse, but thinking of Mrs. Campbell's care over the years, plus the fact that I still needed to get some study abroad documents from her, in the end, I still wore the formal dress and went to the party. In the lively and luxurious party room, Tom Campbell was surrounded by a group of friends. "Tom Campbell, Director Campbell really loves you." "That's right. The watch on your hand is a globally limited product that was just auctioned off. It represents the one and only love in this world. It is said that a mysterious billionaire spent a lot of money to buy it. I didn't expect it to be Director Campbell. I didn't expect it. After so many years, Director Campbell still remembers you so well. I remember when we were still in school, she would pick you up every day. those jellies and chocolates in your desk were all secretly put in by Director Campbell. Also remember that time you guys argued. You didn't talk to her for several days. In order to coax you, she went to ask so many people. She even came to find me to ask how to coax you. You don't know what she looked like at that time. Her eyes were red and swollen. If you didn't talk to her for a few days, it was like you were taking her life. Tom Campbell, there probably isn't anyone in this world who loves you more than Director Campbell. When she learned that you hastily married someone else, she was very depressed. After that, knowing that you weren't living happily abroad, she would fly over there every week to secretly look at you and buy you gifts to make you happy. Now that you're divorced, I don't see her still liking David at all. That's right, be together. In the midst of the loud shouts, I stood in the corner of the room, quietly watching this scene, listening to everyone shouting and telling me how much my wife had once loved another person. David. A voice suddenly rang out from behind, pulling me back from my thoughts. I turned around and looked at the person who had come, intending to call out Mom, but suddenly thinking of something, I changed my address. Hello, Aunt. Hearing this address, Mrs. Campbell sighed, but didn't say anything. She only gave me all the documents needed to go to study abroad. David, everything needed for you to go to study abroad has been prepared. The semester starts early there, so I have already bought the plane ticket for you. It will take off in 3 hours. Is there anything else you need me to help with? I looked at the documents in my hand, feeling as if a burden had been lifted. Thinking of the fact that I was about to embrace freedom and a new life, my hand couldn't help but tremble. I took a deep breath, suppressing the emotions that welled up in my heart. With a surge of excitement, I stuffed the papers into my bag, then shook my head and thanked her. I'm very grateful for everything you've done for me, Aunt. After a pause, I thought of something else and continued, I only have one small request. If Sarah ever finds out everything and asks about my whereabouts, please be sure to say you don't know. Sarah and I are better off never seeing each other again. Mrs. Campbell looked at me in surprise. Haven't you told her you're leaving? What's the point? I replied. Say that all those years ago, my approaching her was intentional? Or that for the past 5 years, my being madly good to her wasn't out of love but only to repay a favor, just because I was following your instructions to help her forget Tom Campbell and escape that failed love affair? Or that I'm going to divorce her to study abroad and never return? What good would it do to say all that? Her first love has already returned. Even if I leave, she probably wouldn't care. I gave a wry smile. It's not necessary. I just want to leave as quickly as possible and don't want to cause any more trouble. Leave? A female voice suddenly rang out from behind. As we both turned our heads, our eyes met Sarah Campbell's deep gaze. My heart skipped a beat. I was about to open my mouth to explain something, but I wasn't sure if she had heard anything or how much she had heard. Fortunately, Mrs. Campbell quickly defused the situation. It's nothing. What are you doing here, Sarah? Sarah Campbell didn't ask any further, only glanced at the cake on the table. Mom, it's time for you to cut the cake. Mrs. Campbell rubbed her temples and refused, I'm a little tired. You two cut the cake. After saying that, she didn't look at them anymore and had the servant help her upstairs. After seeing Mrs. Campbell upstairs, Sarah Campbell raised her hand towards me. Let's go cut the cake then. But I shook my head, holding up my injured hand. I can't. The wound hasn't healed. You go find Tom Campbell. The woman's eyes flashed with surprise, seeming not to understand why I would say that. She felt that something was out of her control. Why should I go find him? This time, it was her who didn't understand. Wasn't it that every time she abandoned me to go find Tom Campbell? In the past 5 years, how many times had she abandoned me for Tom Campbell? Now that I was taking the initiative to give her the chance, she seemed incredulous. What's wrong? I chuckled. Since you two are on good terms, cutting a cake isn't a big deal. Seeing that I didn't really seem to be angry, Sarah Campbell still felt that something was different, but didn't say anything further. She walked straight to Tom Campbell, leaned over, and whispered a few words in his ear. Tom Campbell's face reddened, but he still nodded, hooking arms with Sarah Campbell to go on stage. They held hands and cut the cake as a soothing piano melody played. The image of the two of them being close didn't look like they were cutting a birthday cake, but more like they were cutting a wedding cake. When the party was halfway over, some of the older people had left early for health reasons. The remaining people were all Sarah Campbell's childhood friends. They all clearly understood the situation between her and Tom Campbell. Now that they saw them like this, everyone applauded loudly, with some even shouting, "Kiss." This made Tom Campbell's face even redder. Sarah Campbell's ears were also slightly flushed. She didn't kiss Tom Campbell, but didn't stop the crowd from shouting. I didn't care, only taking out my phone and quietly calculating the time I had to leave. If the plane was taking off in 3 hours, then I had to leave right now. But this silent appearance of mine, in everyone's eyes, turned into sadness. Suddenly, a group of young ladies and wealthy young masters, led by Tiffany Campbell, sneered and walked toward me. As I raised my head, I was surrounded by a crowd. Tiffany looked at me with a meaningful smile. "David, you've been married to my sister for so many years, so what? In the end, you can only stand here alone, watching my sister and Tom Campbell be affectionate. I already told you, the person my sister likes is Tom Campbell. Being with you was only to heal her emotional wounds. If you knew what was good for you, you would have left long ago. How can you shamelessly cling to my sister and refuse to let go?" I was in a hurry to go back and pack my luggage and didn't want to argue with this group of people, so I turned to leave. Unexpectedly, this group of people became even more excessive. "The ugly duckling still wants to turn into a swan? Dream on. If Tom Campbell hadn't gone abroad, do you think with your status, you could sit in the position of son-in-law of the Campbell family? Don't you know what you are? If you know what's good for you, then consciously withdraw from the Campbell residence." As they spoke, they pushed me. "Are you mute? We're talking to you. Can you hear us?" Seeing that I was silent, one of them with a hot temper finally couldn't bear it anymore and suddenly pushed me hard from behind. With a loud crash, my whole body slammed into the tall stack of champagne glasses behind me. The wine glasses shattered, and the white liquid mixed with red blood, looking extremely horrifying. Immediately, all eyes were focused on me. On stage, Sarah Campbell's pupils contracted as she looked at this scene. She hurriedly let go of Tom Campbell's hand and quickly stepped forward. Seeing me lying on the ground, covered in blood, her eyes were full of anger. She hurriedly crouched down to help me up. While telling people to call the private doctor, she raised her head and coldly looked around. Who did it? Everyone was frightened, and no one dared to speak. Her expression darkened, about to open her mouth to say something, when the bodyguard suddenly ran over. "Director Campbell," Tom Campbell suddenly said, his stomach hurts a lot. "You should go take a look." Sarah Campbell didn't let go of me, only frowning slightly. "Is it serious?" The bodyguard looked very anxious. "Tom Campbell is rolling around in pain." This time, the person hesitating was Sarah Campbell. She looked at me, and a trace of hesitation flashed across her face. "David, I understood what she was going to say." With a calm expression, I opened my mouth. "I know. He's been pampered since he was young. He'll be uncomfortable all day long if he gets hurt a little. And you're used to taking care of him." I never expected that I would say what she wanted to say first. Her lips moved slightly, but she couldn't utter a word. I struggled to stand up and continued, "It's okay. You go take care of him. Have the doctor come see him first. I can handle it myself." For some reason, seeing my indifference, she suddenly felt a little flustered. Clearly, I had been so tolerant before, but today, when I was so seriously injured, I was being overly tolerant, so tolerant that she wasn't even in my eyes anymore. This wasn't like the old me. In the past, there had always only been her in my eyes. Since when had I become like this? From when? Sarah Campbell was about to say something more, but from afar, Tom Campbell's painful cries rang out. In the end, she didn't hesitate anymore, only looking at me with a regretful expression. David, I'll come back to see you later. I'll make it up to you later. After saying that, she didn't hesitate any further, abandoning me and hurriedly walked away, looking worried as she supported Tom Campbell, comforting him as she ran out. A sardonic smile appeared on the corners of my mouth. But this appearance of mine, in Tiffany Campbell and the others' eyes, became the sadness of an abandoned person. I thought that doing this would make my sister feel sorry for you, but in the end, she still abandoned you. David, if you have any self-respect, then leave the Campbell residence on your own. I ignored this group of people, borrowed an empty room from the servant, applied the medicine myself, and changed into a new set of clothes before limping away. Returning to the villa, I went straight upstairs to pack my luggage. When I carried my luggage downstairs, I conveniently placed the divorce agreement, with both of our signatures, on the table. Just as I opened the door, about to leave, I bumped into the person who was about to enter. Seeing me, Sarah lowered her head and blamed, "Why are you running around like this? My sister told me to bring medicine to you. I really don't understand what she's thinking. She's not by Tom Campbell's side taking care of him, but she's worried about you, making me have to come here and look for you. I don't need it. Just leave it for Tom Campbell," I said calmly, brushing past Tiffany to leave. It was at this moment that Tiffany saw the suitcase in my hand. Her expression changed, and she hurriedly grabbed my hand. "What are you planning to do?" I looked at her, my eyes unwavering. "What do you think I'm planning to do?" It was very clear what I was planning to do. I was going to leave. Her sister liked Tom Campbell, and she had always wanted Tom Campbell to be her brother-in-law. Now, I was taking the initiative to divorce and give up my spot for him. Hearing these words, Tiffany's eyes widened, and her whole body froze, seeming not to dare to believe what she had just heard. In the past, everyone knew how much I loved Sarah Campbell. How could I suddenly say I was leaving? She suddenly understood something. "David, don't pretend anymore. You love my sister so much. You even shamelessly insisted on marrying her before, so why are you taking the initiative to propose a divorce now? I get it. You're using reverse psychology, aren't you? Let me tell you, this trick won't work on my sister." I was still calm. "Real or fake, the divorce agreement is on the table. You can go see for yourself." "Tiffany, are you holding my hand so tightly because you don't want me to leave?" Tiffany immediately seemed to be electrocuted, hurriedly letting go of my hand. "How is that possible? I hope you leave immediately. As soon as you leave, I'll set off fireworks to celebrate. If my sister knows you're taking the initiative to leave, I don't know how happy she'll be." For some reason, the last sentence she said seemed somewhat lacking in confidence. I didn't look at her anymore, only saying, "Congratulations, then. Congratulations that all of you got what you wanted," and walked out the door. Looking at my back, not showing any reluctance, for the first time, Tiffany felt that something was completely out of control. Her heart suddenly panicked. She hurriedly called out to me, "David, where exactly are you planning to go? Aren't you going to say a word to my sister?" My actions of pulling the suitcase stopped. I turned my head to look at Tiffany and also looked at the villa behind her. To repay a favor, I had pretended to love Sarah Campbell for 5 years, becoming the shameless person in their mouths, pestering and killing to obtain Sarah Campbell. To repay a favor, I had given up my dreams, given up my future, and also lost myself for 5 years. I tried my best to be a good husband but didn't receive any respect. Without any self-esteem, I had lived such a suppressed life for 5 years. Finally, I had repaid the favor. Finally, I had embraced freedom. I smiled, for the first time smiling genuinely and freely. I'm going to live a life that belongs to me alone. From now on, everything here has nothing to do with me anymore. No more seeing the Campbell family, no more seeing Sarah Campbell. I waved my hand as if liberated, then pulled the suitcase and disappeared into the moonlight, melting into the vast night. 3 days later, Sarah Campbell finally had time to go home to get a change of clothes. Just as she entered, she habitually called my name, but after calling several times, she only saw a few servants running out. "Where's the master?" Looking at the servant who was awkwardly changing her shoes and holding her coat, she frowned. The servant stammered for a moment before saying, "The master hasn't been home for days." She put on her slippers and mumbled again, "Not at home again?" The last time, after he took Tom Campbell, who had been scalded by the hot pot, to the hospital, I also encountered this situation. He quietly went to find inspiration for painting, disappearing for several days. This time, he also took Tom Campbell to the hospital first, and before leaving, he generously told me that I could go to the hospital myself. Now, he was sulking again and running away? The frustration in her heart gradually turned into an indescribable anger. Sarah Campbell had just walked to the sofa when she saw a stack of papers placed on the table. Normally, she wouldn't even bother to look, but today, as if possessed, she picked up the stack of papers on the table. In the signature area below, her name clearly appeared. In an instant, her expression became extremely cold. The light in her eyes disappeared, leaving only endless coldness and gloom. She reached out to caress her signature, discovering that it wasn't printed or imitated, but her real signature. But in her memory, she had no memory of signing a divorce agreement at all. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed slightly, and she suddenly remembered that morning when she had eaten the Western-style breakfast. He seemed to have asked her to sign something then. At the time, she had been busy chatting with Tom Campbell and hadn't paid attention. Now, thinking back, that must have been the divorce agreement. The paper in her hand was gripped so tightly that it was crumpled, then torn to pieces, scattering all over the place. Divorce him? This must be the biggest joke in the world. He loves me so much that he could jump into the sea for me. I've abandoned him so many times, yet I've never seen him angry. It must be that I've been too busy taking care of Tom Campbell lately, so he's a little jealous. 5 years is a long time, so it's okay to let him be a little jealous. Anyway, he'll come back on his own then. If he hasn't come back, he will come back. Sarah Campbell was so sure, because in this world, besides her, there was no one else who loved him as much as his own life. In the following days, the servants in the villa were silent, not mentioning me anymore. Until the day Sarah Campbell picked up Tom Campbell from the hospital. Seeing the bowl of ordinary-tasting porridge in front of her, Tiffany Campbell slammed the table and roared, "Who cooked this porridge? Where's David? Tell him to cook us another bowl." The servant next to her stammered, "Director Campbell, the master hasn't been home for days." Tiffany Campbell's eyes immediately widened. He still hasn't come back? She had always thought that the words divorce that I had said back then were just a joke. After all, the Campbell family was the only wealthy family that I could reach in this lifetime. Who wouldn't want to cling to it? Remembering the divorce agreement that I had seen on the table back then, she raised her head to look at Sarah Campbell opposite her. According to the servant, Sarah Campbell had also seen the divorce agreement when she came home. It was just that she didn't take it seriously, directly tearing it to pieces and throwing it in the trash. She bit her lip, looking at Tom Campbell next to her. He was quietly drinking the porridge, seeming to not hear what they were saying at all. Her sister had looked forward to Tom Campbell for so many years, and now, he also had the intention of turning back. I had divorced and given up my spot. Logically, her sister should be happy. Tiffany turned to look at Sarah Campbell. She was frowning, seeming unhappy that I still hadn't returned. Thinking of me, a trace of resentment was added to her heart. Since I had already left, why was I still making her sister uneasy? After the meal, Tom Campbell was supported upstairs to rest by the servant. Tiffany looked at Sarah Campbell, who was still sitting in place, thinking for a moment, then opened her mouth. "Sister, when are you going to give Tom Campbell his official title? I've been looking forward to him being my brother-in-law for so many years." Sarah Campbell suddenly raised her head to look at her. "What are you saying?" Tiffany Campbell, who had been a little afraid of this older sister since she was young, couldn't help but shrink back, but she still stubbornly said, "David has already divorced you, and you don't like him anymore. Why don't you get together with Tom Campbell?" how do you know I'm divorced? She swallowed. The last time you asked me to bring medicine to him, I accidentally saw the divorce agreement. It's just that I thought at the time that he was just joking. Seeing that he's been gone for so long and hasn't returned, I had to believe that he really wanted to divorce you. After hearing what she said, Sarah Campbell's expression became even more gloomy. Without much thinking, she knew that the divorce agreement that he had left behind then wasn't because he was sulking, but because he really wanted to divorce her. The coffee cup in her hand was slammed heavily on the table. She loved him so much, yet he divorced her? Perhaps she had been too indulgent to him over the years. Moreover, since he had divorced her, where else could he go? Call the butler and tell him not to be angry anymore. Tell him to quickly come back. The servant stammered, looking embarrassed. We've already called the master, but we can't get in touch with him. Sarah Campbell took out her phone, opened her contact list, and scrolled up and down for a while before realizing that she didn't have his phone number at all. The last time, she had to ask the assistant to help call. After getting my phone number from the servant, she called, but only a mechanical voice came from the other end. The phone number you have dialed is currently out of service. He had cancelled his phone number. The woman looked at the black screen, her eyes gradually turning cold. Deep inside, she suddenly got up and walked out. Tiffany called out from behind, but couldn't stop her. It wasn't until she was driving and stopped at a red light that Sarah Campbell calmed down. Where would she go to find me? I was an orphan, having lost my parents at a young age. Since I was sponsored by the Campbell family, I had always lived in the orphanage. Amidst the blaring car horns, she turned the car around and drove towards the orphanage. Looking at the woman in front of her, the director was cold for the first time. She had the other teachers take the children elsewhere before sitting down. Ms. Campbell, please sit. What can I do for you? Sarah Campbell didn't want to argue about the other party's cold attitude. I want to ask the director, do you know where David has gone? She had originally wanted to say that ever since he was gone, the whole house had been in a mess, but thinking of the person in front of her, she swallowed the words she had wanted to say. In the director's eyes, a hint of sarcasm flashed. Married for 5 years, Ms. Campbell still called David that? In the director's heart, a trace of pity flashed, but then it turned into joy. She was happy that David had repaid his debt early and divorced her. Otherwise, with such a woman, it really wasn't worth being with her for a lifetime. The director didn't even bother to look at Sarah Campbell and started handling her work. You and David have been married for 5 years. You don't even know where he's gone. How would I know? Ms. Campbell, please leave. After returning empty-handed, Sarah Campbell punched the steering wheel hard. She had always thought that the divorce agreement that I had left behind was just me throwing a tantrum. Now that I had cancelled my phone number and no one knew where I had gone, she had to admit that I really wanted to divorce her. But in her heart, she was still full of unwillingness. Clearly, I had loved her so much before, so why did I decide to leave so resolutely? Just then, the phone next to her rang. As she answered the phone, Mrs. Campbell's weak voice came through. Sarah, come home. Mom has something to tell you. Mrs. Campbell looked at the person in front of her and sighed. Now that you've divorced David, and Tom Campbell has also divorced and returned to the country, you and Tom Campbell. Sarah Campbell hurriedly interrupted, Mom, I haven't agreed to divorce David. Mrs. Campbell was surprised and widened her eyes, taking out a divorce certificate from the drawer. But you two already have a divorce certificate. Didn't David tell you? Seeing the confusion in her daughter's eyes, Mrs. Campbell was even more surprised. She had initially thought that David had only not told her daughter about going to study abroad. She didn't expect that he hadn't even told her about the divorce. Then how did they sign the divorce agreement? Sarah Campbell looked at the divorce certificate in front of her, her expression pale. A raging fire of anger burned in her chest, spreading to her eyes. She had only thought that I had signed the divorce agreement with her. She didn't expect that I had even gotten the divorce certificate. If she remembered correctly, since there was a divorce certificate, there was also a 1-month consideration period, which also meant that only a little over a month ago, I had already prepared to divorce her. Looking at the doubtful gaze of her mother, she said a few words casually, then asked, "Why do you want to match me with Tom Campbell?" Mrs. Campbell laughed. "In the past, you were living a life worse than death for Tom Campbell's sake. Now that Tom Campbell has returned to the country, and David has also divorced you, I thought. Everyone used to say that you and Tom Campbell weren't compatible. Now that you've both divorced, everyone is starting to say that you two are very well matched." An uncomfortable feeling spread in Sarah Campbell's heart. "But I haven't agreed to divorce David." For some reason, when hearing about divorcing me, her heart suddenly panicked. In these 5 years of marriage, she had become too used to my care. If she divorced me, she couldn't imagine how bad her life would be. Moreover, I loved her as my own life. My divorce must only be me throwing a tantrum. As for Tom Campbell, she did indeed like him. After all, he was her first love that she had missed for so many years. But to tell her to give up on me, it seemed that she couldn't do it. Seeing the entanglement in Sarah Campbell's eyes, Mrs. Campbell took out another stack of papers from the drawer. When Sarah Campbell saw the 4 large words "repayment agreement" on the document, along with my signature at the bottom, her eyes immediately widened. "Mom, what does this mean?" After all, she was her daughter, so Mrs. Campbell didn't want to hide anything. "Back then, when Tom Campbell got married and went abroad, you, from a graceful lady, became so depressed, so I thought of finding someone to help you get through it. Just then, David came to repay a favor. After the 2 sides discussed it, they quickly reached an agreement. As long as David stayed by your side for 5 years and helped you escape that relationship, his repayment would be considered complete. To be honest, David did very well in these 5 years, but he also always reminded himself, so he always called me Aunt. At first, I also thought that if Tom Campbell never returned in this lifetime, I would treat David as my real son-in-law. Who knew that just when the 5-year agreement was up, Tom Campbell divorced and returned. And you, in order to see Tom Campbell, had a car accident. I was still hesitating, not knowing what to say, when David took the initiative to find me, proposing to divorce and withdraw. After hearing a string of words from Mrs. Campbell, Sarah Campbell seemed to not hear anything anymore. Her hands tightly gripped the repayment agreement, constantly trembling, her mind blank. So all the good things I had done for her in these 5 years were only to repay a favor? So I had never loved her? So when Tom Campbell returned to the country, I was so eager to divorce her? But the loving gaze I had for her before couldn't have been faked. If I truly didn't love her, how could I have jumped into the sea for her? How could I have treated her so well for 5 years? She looked at the agreement in front of her with complicated eyes. On it were written clearly the things I had to do for her in these 5 years. The more she read, the more gloomy her expression became. From the big things, such as having to be responsible for her life, to the small things, such as having to do all the housework myself, every good thing I did for her was for the agreement, without any personal feelings. The last bit of fantasy in Sarah Campbell's heart was wiped away by the dense terms in the agreement. The emotion of anger was like a dam breaking, pouring into the depths of her eyes, almost wanting to drown her. The agreement in her hand turned into powder in an instant. In Mrs. Campbell's eyes, her daughter had always been calm and composed. Only when Tom Campbell got married and went abroad did she lose control. This was the second time she had gotten angry for someone else like this. The words Mrs. Campbell had wanted to say in the end were swallowed back. Sarah Campbell took a few deep breaths before trying to calm down. Since I signed this agreement with my mom, then she must know where I went. She raised her head to look at her mom, a hint of suspicion flashing in her eyes. "Mom, you must know where David has gone, right?" Mrs. Campbell looked at her for a long time. "I should know, because I took care of his plane ticket to go abroad. But at the time, David asked me not to reveal his whereabouts." She looked at her daughter with an embarrassed expression. "I'm sorry, I can't tell you." Mrs. Campbell smiled bitterly. "Even if I told you, it would be useless. Maybe he had already guessed that there would be a day like this. He knew that since I was your mother, I would definitely tell you, so he didn't even study abroad in the country that I had arranged. Sarah Campbell immediately became disappointed. She had never thought that I would leave so resolutely, like how I suddenly barged into her world before. But besides a little regret, Mrs. Campbell didn't have any other emotions, only probing. "So, you and Tom Campbell?" Suddenly, a harsh ringtone rang out. As soon as she answered the phone, Tiffany's hurried voice came through. "Sister! Hurry home. Tom Campbell is in trouble." When Sarah Campbell returned home, she saw several foreigners standing outside the villa. The woman at the head had delicate eyebrows and coldly looked at Tom Campbell, who was crying and covering his face. Sarah Campbell immediately recognized her. It was Tom Campbell's ex-wife. She hurriedly stepped forward. Tiffany, who was standing beside her, waved her hand when she saw her. "Sister." Everyone looked towards her, especially Tom Campbell's ex-wife, who even looked her up and down. That gaze made Sarah Campbell feel uncomfortable in her heart. Sarah Campbell walked in front of Tom Campbell, looking at the woman in front of her. "Ms. Evans, what business do you have at the Campbell residence?" "What business do I have? Miss Campbell, isn't that the most obvious thing?" Evans looked at her with a cold smile. "Tom Campbell and I were married for 5 years. You always disturbed him. To tell you the truth, we were able to divorce thanks to your help." Sarah Campbell felt confused. So in those 5 years, she had been going abroad once a week to secretly see Tom Campbell, but she had always hidden it very well, and the gifts she had brought were all ordinary things. Evans looked at Sarah Campbell as if looking at an idiot. "Although Tom Campbell and I got married hastily, we did genuinely love each other at first. Until he fully took control of the family company, began to purge the internal staff, and became busy, he neglected me." Seeing his posts on social media, I had planned to explain, but I was stopped by countless calls. It was also during that time that many small gifts that couldn't be found in the United States suddenly appeared next to Tom Campbell. I checked the camera and found out that it was Sarah Campbell secretly putting these gifts in front of our house. An inexplicable anger welled up in my heart. I threw all those gifts in front of Tom Campbell. We quarreled countless times. In the end, Tom Campbell secretly divorced me and returned to the country. Evans looked at the person in front of her. "Ms. Campbell, you really are good at maintaining yourself. You already have a husband, yet you still miss other people's husbands." These words made Sarah Campbell's expression turn pale. "We've already divorced." Tom Campbell, who had been bowing his head, suddenly looked up at her in surprise. From a young age, he knew that Sarah Campbell liked him, but he only treated her as his little sister. The night he learned from his friends that she was planning to confess, he was preparing to bring his girlfriend home to meet the family. To avoid embarrassment, he married Evans and went abroad. Perhaps because he married too hastily, at first, Evans did indeed love him very much. But later, with the increasing busyness of work, coupled with the ambiguous provocations from men outside and his belated explanations, cracks gradually appeared in their marriage. His posts on social media were also seen by Sarah Campbell, so those gifts appeared outside his house. He knew that Sarah Campbell had also married and understood that these actions would cause great trouble for both couples, so he was planning to secretly deal with all those gifts. As a result, the day he threw them away, he was caught by Evans in person. Countless accumulated contradictions erupted at that moment. After that, he secretly divorced and returned to the country. His parents abroad couldn't take care of him. Just as he was planning to stay at the Campbell family hotel, Sarah Campbell, not knowing from where, learned the news that he was divorced and ran to find him. He was originally timid. The boldest thing he had ever done was secretly divorce Evans. When facing Sarah Campbell, who had always liked him, he firmly refused and said that he had a place to stay. But she, as if not hearing anything, insisted on taking him back to the Campbell residence. When he thought that I wouldn't want him to stay, he felt relieved in his heart, thinking that he could take this opportunity to leave. Who knew that I would agree? Later, when his house was renovated, he took advantage of her being away to secretly move out. After all, they were friends for many years, and he didn't want to break the friendship between the two. But every time he refused, it turned into a different meaning in her eyes. This made him extremely troubled. When hearing the news that I had divorced her and left, a sense of guilt arose in his heart. He shouldn't have returned to the country. Evans didn't even bother to look at Sarah Campbell and directly pulled Tom Campbell from behind her. Sarah Campbell instinctively wanted to snatch him back, but was blocked by Evans' bodyguard. "Tom Campbell, what happened before was my fault. I apologize to you. I promise that there won't be such things in the future. Now, do you want to go home with me? As for the divorce papers, I've asked to withdraw them." Tom Campbell looked hesitant. "Tom Campbell, don't agree." In Sarah Campbell's eyes, panic was clear. She knew clearly the damage that Tom Campbell had suffered in these years because of Evans. If he went back, wouldn't he repeat the same mistakes? Tiffany next to her also constantly nodded. "That's right, Tom Campbell. My sister is the best person." Tom Campbell looked at the hand that Evans was holding tightly, took a deep breath, then raised his head to look at Sarah Campbell. "Sarah, thank you for taking care of me these past few days." These words made Sarah Campbell in front of him completely collapse. "Tom Campbell." Tom Campbell bit his lip. From a young age, his personality had always been weak and easily bullied. He didn't know how to refuse. It was always Sarah who helped him. He was very grateful to her. Now, he had the courage to speak out and refuse. But because of fear, he often cried when refusing. This had turned into a different meaning in her eyes. He was very sorry for the misunderstandings he had caused. "David is a good man. I also want to say sorry to him. Sarah, from now on, let's not meet again." Not knowing how this drama would end, the crowd dispersed. The villa was once again left with only Sarah Campbell. Seeing her daughter become depressed again, Mrs. Campbell was both angry and distressed, angry that her daughter always had to become like this for love, distressed that her daughter's body had to endure so much. And this time, there was no one like David to appear again. The continuous shocks made Sarah Campbell seem to become a different person. These rumors were also transmitted by netizens to the other side of the ocean, in Italy. When I had just left the studio, my companion was holding his phone, showing me the rumors about Sarah Campbell. "David, look quickly." While carrying the painting, I glanced at the screen, then hummed. "You only have that reaction?" My friend looked at me, not understanding. I helplessly shrugged. "What do you want me to react to? It's just the same things below. My business, everyone also knows it clearly." After all, at the time, the matter of Sarah Campbell having a car accident for love and then marrying someone else had caused a stir in public opinion. The things I did, they also knew apart. But their reactions were worlds apart compared to the group of people around Sarah Campbell. Such a good person, yet Sarah Campbell didn't cherish him and kept disturbing other people's husbands. "She's really shameless." My friend waved his hand, his expression indignant. "Hearing you say that, I just want to slap her twice." I smiled faintly. Since I went abroad, I haven't cared about the things in the country anymore. Late at night, when I had just finished painting the last painting, a harsh ringtone suddenly broke the silence. It was a call from a classmate who had returned to the country with me. As soon as I answered, an excited voice came through. "David. David. Let me tell you, Sarah Campbell has gone crazy." "Gone crazy?" I frowned. At this time, I learned that since I had divorced Sarah Campbell and gone abroad, coupled with the fact that her first love had followed his ex-wife back to the United States, Sarah Campbell had become depressed. She spent her days curled up in the house, drinking alcohol. If it had been before, I would have cooked her hangover soup long ago. Now that there was no me to take care of her meticulously, she suddenly remembered the good things I had done. Adding to that were other people's exclamations about how well I had treated her, which made her want to find me even more intensely. Unfortunately, I hadn't even gone to the country that Mrs. Campbell had arranged. She didn't even know where I was to find me. She even neglected the company and the entire Campbell group, punishing all those who had once harmed me. Even Tiffany, who used to dislike me, was forcibly sent to Australia. If such a series of crazy actions weren't madness, then what were they? I caressed the rose on the windowsill, lowering my gaze. From the day I started repaying the favor, I only saw Sarah Campbell as a task, only wanting to quickly repay the favor and leave that place as soon as possible. That day, I had initially planned to go to the country that Mrs. Campbell had arranged, but after thinking it over, I bought a plane ticket to Italy instead. Upon landing, I wholeheartedly invested in my career, completely no longer caring about Sarah Campbell's affairs. Now, hearing news about her, I only thought of one sentence: belated love is worthless. Moreover, I didn't love her, so how could I care about her regrets? I still carried my drawing board to the studio as usual. Just as I left the door, I saw my best friend, Wendy, standing and waiting for me at the gate. After receiving the warm loaf of bread from Wendy's hands, I also gave her the birthday gift I had prepared. We smiled and talked as we headed to the studio, but were informed that today's class was cancelled because a famous American art expert would be coming to the school to give a lecture. We put away our drawing boards and headed to the school auditorium. The auditorium was packed with people. Wendy and I struggled to squeeze in and finally sat down in 2 seats at the back. As the sound of knocking echoed, the auditorium quickly fell silent. Upon seeing the person who came, the originally noisy auditorium suddenly became quiet. There was nothing else, just that the expert who came to give the lecture was too handsome. They had met many beautiful people in the art world, but there was no one as beautiful as the man in front. Only I, upon clearly seeing that person, suddenly held my breath. Because I knew this person. Long time no see, David. The person in front of me smiled, making my eyes involuntarily turn red. Lucas and Willow were the people I had grown up with in the orphanage, childhood sweethearts. They were both a few years older than me, so they both protected me. It was just that we had different fates. Lucas and Willow were successively adopted by loving families. Only I was left behind in the orphanage, eventually being sponsored by the Campbell family. Seeing the skinny and weak me before him, Lucas' eyes were full of heartache. Back then, under his and Willow's care, I had also been a happy boy. It was just that later, fate had played tricks on us. He and Willow were successively adopted. At that time, everyone was still young, with no way to contact each other. The three had lost contact with each other like that. Over the years, he had always been searching for the other two. In the end, he only found Willow. It wasn't until later that he saw a news article about Sarah Campbell's wedding on the official website of the Campbell family that he learned I had married Sarah Campbell. He also knew about the things Sarah Campbell had done and felt even more heartache for me, a person who had originally been lively and cheerful, being tormented by this marriage to the point of being full of injuries. Upon learning that I had come to Italy to study, he and Willow had discussed it and moved to Rome. We talked for a long time before I learned that he and Willow had gotten married. They had also moved to Rome to see me sooner. This time, I couldn't hold back any longer, wanting to pour out all the grievances of these past years. That night, when meeting Willow at the dinner party, the tears I had just dried were shed once again. The three of us talked for a long time again. Willow placed my favorite dish in front of me, then asked caringly, "David, what are your plans for the future?" I finished the last piece of steak on the plate, shaking my head. I don't have any plans yet. Right now, I'm only thinking of graduating first, then holding my own art exhibition or finding a job that I like. As for going back home, a glimmer of confusion flashed in my eyes. Go back home? I would definitely have to go back to visit Mom Wendy. After all, the day I said goodbye to Mom Wendy, she had secretly put some money in my pocket. But going back also meant having to see Sarah Campbell again. Thinking of the crazy things she had done, I frowned again. The couple looked at each other, hurriedly changing the subject. Let's eat first. We'll think about the future later. We'll always support you. In the blink of an eye, it was another autumn. I also welcomed my graduation. Looking at the scene before me, I was filled with emotion. The graduation ceremony that had been delayed for 5 years had finally arrived. "David, congratulations on graduating." Friends successively gave me flowers and congratulated me. At the final dinner with my friends, I also drank a few glasses of wine. The bitterness of the wine slid down my throat, a sour feeling rising in my heart. Thinking that it would be difficult to see each other again in the future, everyone cried and laughed, partying until late at night. A week later, I packed my luggage, bid farewell to my friends, and followed Lucas and Willow back to the country. It wasn't to stay for a long time, only temporarily. One was to go back to visit Mom Wendy, and the other was to accept the entrustment of my friends and hold an art exhibition with them. Seeing Mom Wendy after not seeing her for 2 years, my eyes turned red once again. Mom Wendy caressed my hand, hearing that I had completed my studies and fulfilled my dreams, her eyes filled with satisfaction. After talking for a while, Mom Wendy suddenly opened her mouth. "Oh, right. Not long after you went abroad, Sarah Campbell came to the orphanage to find me, asking about your whereabouts." Having not heard the name Sarah Campbell for a long time, I was a little stunned. Mom Wendy continued to say, "But looking at her, I knew she didn't treat you well, so I didn't tell her anything." After having dinner with Mom Wendy, I returned to the Liu residence. Because I was only back in the country temporarily, Lucas and Willow had taken me back to their home. Always seeing me back, Willow hurriedly welcomed me, caring for me while leading me to the dining room to drink soup. After talking about the exhibition next week for a while, I returned to my room to rest. At the Campbell building, Sarah Campbell stared blankly at the photo on the table for a long time. 2 years. Right, 2 years. She had mobilized all of the Campbell family's power, yet she still couldn't find my whereabouts. Looking at the naive person in the photo, a bitter smile appeared on her lips. This was her and my wedding photo, also the only photo of them together in 5 years. People often have to wait until they lose something to know how to cherish it. Now, she also understood this sentence. When I had just left, she thought she was only used to my care, so she wasn't adapting to me leaving. It wasn't until she saw the repayment agreement between me and her mom, along with the things that happened afterward, that she knew that the habit of having me had long turned into love. It was just that before, because of Tom Campbell's existence, she had overlooked this love. Now that she had admitted this love, I had also long left her world. The office door was knocked from the outside, then the assistant stepped in. "Director Campbell, tomorrow there will be an art exhibition held by a new artist at the city center, inviting you to come and visit." It wasn't until after divorcing me that Sarah Campbell discovered that she understood me too little. When I went to find inspiration for painting and returned, she thought I had suddenly become interested in painting. It wasn't until later that she learned I had studied art since I was young. If it hadn't been for repaying the favor and giving up the opportunity to study abroad, I would have long become a star in the industry. Perhaps to understand me better, perhaps also to be a little closer to me, as long as there was an art exhibition held in River City, she would come to visit. On the other hand, a classmate had sent me a list of reporters and businessmen who were invited to this exhibition so that I could prepare myself. When seeing Sarah Campbell's name on the list, I was a little stunned. Seeing my expression like that, my classmate hurriedly said, "If you don't want to see her then, you can not do the interviews at that time." I smiled and shook my head. "It's okay." From the first day I returned to the country, I knew that one day we would meet again. Avoiding this head also doesn't avoid that head. Moreover, what do I have to be afraid of? I've long repaid what I owed her. Now, we're just strangers. At the exhibition, there was an endless stream of people. Following the signs, I walked into the exhibition hall. Sarah Campbell also walked in with the crowd. Over the years, she had visited many art exhibitions and also had some understanding of the paintings on the wall. Every painting was very beautiful, until this painting appeared. There were no superfluous lines, only a landscape of mountains. The sign next to it wrote the name of the painting, Freedom. For some reason, she remembered me. In the 5 years of marriage, I had always revolved around her, staying at home and waiting for her, losing myself, without any freedom. The most ordinary things had become my desires. While deep in thought, a familiar voice entered her ears. She followed the source of the sound and immediately saw the person she had been missing day and night. At that moment, her world suddenly became silent. In her heart and in her eyes, there was only the man in front of her. At this time, I was introducing my work to the person in front of me. David. I frowned slightly. Before I could turn my head, I was tightly hugged by someone. The sweet scent of perfume assaulted my nose. Sarah Campbell tightly hugged me, her body constantly trembling. David, you're finally back. I was about to push her away when a figure was one step faster than me, forcefully pulling the woman away. David, are you okay? I shook my head. Lucas looked at the woman before him, his eyes cold. Sarah Campbell, how can you still have the face to meet David? Just seeing her, Lucas remembered the grievances I had suffered in those 5 years, his heart even angrier. Sarah Campbell opened her mouth, wanting to explain, but I spoke up to stop him. Let's go somewhere else to talk. I don't want the art exhibition that I and my friends worked so hard to prepare to be ruined by her. At a coffee shop on the 2nd floor, Lucas stood in front of me and Willow, questioning Sarah Campbell before him. David has already divorced you. Why are you still disturbing him? Sarah Campbell looked at my cold face behind Lucas, her heart feeling like someone was squeezing it, so painful that she couldn't breathe. I had never treated her with such an expression before. When seeing me again, there were many things she wanted to ask, but in the end, only one sentence remained. David, why did you divorce me? Willow rolled her eyes. What a stupid question. I calmly looked at her. The repayment is over. Of course, I have to leave. From the time she signed the divorce agreement, I knew that the matter of my repaying the favor would also be brought before her. So, all the good things you did for me all these years were just to repay the favor? Sarah Campbell gripped her hand, her voice trembling. That's right, I was still as calm as before. As if remembering something, I continued, from the time Mrs. Campbell told me to sign the repayment agreement, our relationship was only one of repaying a favor. I also always reminded myself of that. So after signing, I immediately prepared a divorce agreement. Speaking of which, Sarah Campbell was the first woman I had known. Not wanting my pure thoughts to be deceived by 5 years of illusion, I had prepared a divorce agreement early on. Whenever I felt that I was about to be moved by her, I would take out the divorce agreement to remind myself of the relationship and distance between us. Had I ever tried to love Sarah Campbell? Perhaps I had. But when those feelings had just sprouted, she would abandon me for Tom Campbell. Anyone normal would be tired after one time, let alone me, a person who was repaying a favor. Not hating her was already very good. 5 years. Saying it was long, so long that I thought that my whole life would be like that. Saying it was short, so short that in the blink of an eye, I had completely escaped her and gone abroad. Those cold and realistic words, without any feelings, continued to pour out, making Sarah Campbell's expression become even paler. Sarah Campbell, whether it's in the past, present, or future, I have never and will never love you. Between us, there is only repaying a favor. I didn't care about her reaction at all. I only wanted to quickly resolve this matter and then go downstairs to take care of the exhibition. Sarah Campbell intended to step forward and stop me, but Lucas always blocked in front of me. She could only watch as my back disappeared behind the door. This exhibition wasn't affected by that small incident. In the end, it still went smoothly. To congratulate me, Lucas and Willow had specially booked a restaurant that I liked. But before the food came, a bunch of bright roses was brought before me. May I ask, is Mr. David here? These are the flowers that Ms. Campbell sent to congratulate Mr. Young on his successful exhibition. I didn't receive them at all, only telling the flower delivery person to take the flowers back. Please tell Ms. Campbell that I don't like red roses. Red roses are for giving to a loyal lover. I only like wild roses that have thorns. The originally warm atmosphere suddenly became rigid. The flower delivery person held the bouquet in his hand, in a dilemma. Seeing that I wasn't saying anything for a long time, the flower delivery person finally quietly left. But this didn't affect Sarah Campbell. She still sent a bouquet of wild roses to my studio every day. The bouquet of wild roses hadn't even entered before it was thrown into the trash. At another exhibition, Sarah Campbell intentionally blocked me, wanting to ask why I didn't accept her flowers. I looked at her for a long time, suddenly smiling sarcastically. After being husband and wife for 5 years, you still don't understand anything about me. Because I don't like you, I also don't like anything you give me, Sarah Campbell. Why can't we break up peacefully? I've already divorced you. Aren't you the happiest person? She took a deep breath, her eyes tried to persuade me to give Sarah Campbell another chance. In reality, what Lucas said wasn't wrong. Sarah Campbell's pain was caused by herself and Tom Campbell. Yet, they wanted me, an innocent person, to pull her out. No more studies, no future, no freedom, and that made up repaying a favor that made me waste 5 years of my life, while also forcing me to be grateful to the Campbell family. There's no such good thing in the world. In reality, I didn't want to at first. If I could finish university smoothly and then study abroad, I could pay back the Campbell family the sponsorship money plus interest in just 1 or 2 years. It's just that Mrs. Campbell doted on her daughter too much, unable to bear Sarah Campbell suffering even a little bit, so she hurriedly dragged me down. Her daughter's life couldn't be ruined because of this small matter, but no one cared whether my life was ruined or not. Mrs. Campbell looked at the handsome man before her. In her heart, besides satisfaction, there was only regret. Satisfied that such a person as her daughter-in-law in the Campbell family wasn't bad. Regretful that back then, Sarah Campbell only liked Tom Campbell, so she missed such a good son-in-law. But now, Sarah Campbell had also broken off with Tom Campbell. If I could go back to being their son-in-law, it wouldn't be bad. After hearing Mrs. Campbell's words, I didn't say anything, only placing the bank card I had prepared on the table in front of her. Inside was twice the amount of money that the Campbell family had sponsored me back then. If it wasn't for that repaying a favor thing, I would only be 2 years late in being able to return the Campbell family's sponsorship money plus interest. The Campbell family originally liked doing charity. The people who were sponsored weren't just me. Each time, the money was only transferred periodically into their bank cards. Over the years, the Campbell family also didn't go looking for the people who were sponsored to force them to repay the favor. Perhaps I was too naive, but it just so happened that I had actively come to the door. Now, I also understood, but I didn't have the mind to calculate so much. After saying that, I didn't look at Mrs. Campbell's reaction and took the bank card and left. Mrs. Campbell was initially stunned, an unnamed anger rising in her heart, but then thinking of the 2 families, Lou and To, standing behind me, she had to swallow this anger down. I had just left the Campbell residence when I bumped into Sarah Campbell, who had just returned. "David, why are you here?" In the woman's words, there was a hint of surprise and joy. I smiled faintly. "Mrs. Campbell wants me to, like 7 years ago, give up my future and career and continue to waste time by your side." Sarah Campbell's expression immediately turned pale. She suddenly remembered the agreement she had seen 2 years ago. In those 5 years of repaying the favor, I had to give up everything and wholeheartedly be by her side. Ordinary people would go crazy in 1 or 2 years, let alone me, who had to stay for 5 years. Adding to that was the way she had treated me in those 5 years. One could imagine how difficult my days had been. The pain spread throughout her body. She gripped her hand tightly. "David, I'm sorry." I had no more patience to listen to her talk. Not even bothering to give her a glance, I directly walked past her. Perhaps because of the words I had said, Sarah Campbell didn't come to find me anymore in the following days. I was also able to have some peace. Until the day of the Liu family's party, as Lucas' younger brother, I was also invited to come. At the party, a grating voice suddenly rang out from behind. "Why are you here?" I turned my head, seeing Tiffany looking at me with resentment. After all, she was Mrs. Campbell's daughter. She couldn't bear to let her suffer in Australia, so she had asked the Campbell to bring her back. Seeing me, Tiffany's heart was filled with resentment. Because of you, both divorce and exile. My sister and I had to go to Australia. It's been 2 years before Campbell finally picked me up. Behind her was a stack of champagne glasses. I instinctively wanted to dodge, but slipped on the stairs. David. Willow quickly pulled me, pulling me behind her. Tiffany didn't have time to stop, crashing straight into the stack of champagne glasses. With a loud crash, all the guests looked in this direction, only seeing Tiffany falling into the stack of champagne glasses, broken glass all over the ground. She was covered in blood. Tiffany. Sarah Campbell, hearing the sound, hurriedly ran over, wanting to help her up. Just as she touched Tiffany, she screamed. Willow checked me carefully, confirming that I was okay before turning to look at Tiffany, who was lying on the ground. The Campbell family is really well educated. Rushing over and stabbing our David for no reason? What did our David do to offend you? If I remember correctly, 2 years ago, it seems that it was also this Ms. Campbell and a group of people who pushed our David into the stack of champagne glasses. Hearing this, Sarah Campbell's hand that was reaching out froze in midair. She complicatedly looked at me standing behind Willow. I looked at the chaotic scene before me, my face full of sarcasm. Faced with the pointing gazes of everyone around, Tiffany's face became even redder. She didn't care about anything anymore, pointing at me. It's all because of you. If it wasn't for you, why would I have been sent to Australia? With her family's conditions, they could have lived comfortably in Australia. Oh, Sarah Campbell decided to teach her a lesson and cut off all her credit cards, so each month she could only live on a little relief money from Mrs. Campbell, living a difficult life. It's all because of me? Who was it who looked down on me and mocked me back then? Who was it who sent you to Australia? You still haven't thought clearly before blaming me. I said coldly. Tiffany, did you forget to bring something from Australia? Hearing me implicitly scold her for not bringing her brain, Tiffany intended to stand up and continue to make a scene. Enough. Sarah Campbell turned to look at Tiffany next to her, her voice full of warning. Haven't you stayed long enough in Australia? Sister. You're actually scolding me for him? What's so good about him? Skinny as a stick, without a figure, without any temperament, an orphan. I suddenly stepped forward and slapped Tiffany once. So what if I'm an orphan? I'm still better than a person like you who doesn't have any education. I turned to look at Sarah Campbell. Sarah Campbell, manage your family well. Sarah Campbell gripped her hand, her expression cold, ordering the secretary next to her, Todd, take Ms. Campbell to the hospital. Todd didn't hesitate anymore, hurriedly stepping forward, covering Tiffany's mouth and pulling her out. David. Sarah Campbell looked at me, her face full of regret. I'm sorry about today. Ms. Campbell, are you apologizing to the wrong person? I said coldly. She looked at Lucas, who had just been hastily called over by the butler. On the way here, Lucas had heard the butler tell him the situation. He stepped forward, not even looking at Sarah Campbell, who was about to apologize to me, only anxiously looking at his wife and younger brother to see if they were hurt. Seeing the two shake their heads, Lucas looked at Sarah Campbell. My assistant will discuss compensation with Ms. Campbell regarding today's mess. After saying that, he had the butler take us upstairs to rest. This party wasn't ruined because of a small incident. In the end, it still went smoothly. It wasn't until late at night that Sarah Campbell finished discussing compensation with the butler of the Liu family and returned to the Campbell residence. Upon arriving, she discovered that the entire Campbell residence was brightly lit. The helper, seeing her return, hurriedly stepped forward. Director Campbell, you quickly go and advise the director and the young master. Ms. Campbell is still young, after all. Sarah Campbell listened while walking through the main entrance. She immediately saw Tiffany kneeling on the ground. On her face were still a few handprints. On the other side, on the sofa, Mrs. Campbell was weeping softly. Campbell was holding a whip in his hand, his face full of anger, looking at Tiffany. I see that these past few years, you've been spoiled. What kind of person is David? What kind of status does he have in the Liu family? Yet you even dared to provoke him. Most of the Campbell family's businesses were overseas, so Campbell often worked overseas. The big and small matters in the home were taken care of by Mrs. Campbell. It wasn't until this year that Campbell had shifted his focus back to the country. Hearing the butler talk about what they had done over the years, Campbell's expression darkened. If you don't understand the rules, then just stay in Australia for the rest of your life and don't come back. Tiffany, who was kneeling on the ground, shouted in a broken voice, "Dad." Sarah Campbell next to her hurriedly stepped forward, wanting to help her out. She's still young. Young what? She's already over 20 years old, yet she still doesn't use her brain when doing things. Besides love, what else does she know? Mrs. Campbell, who was on the side, couldn't help but speak up to protect Tiffany. Hearing Mrs. Campbell's voice, Campbell remembered that he had forgotten about her. The fire of anger that had just been extinguished in his eyes blazed up again. And you? After seeing that your daughter, who you've carefully raised, has had 2 car accidents for a man and had to go to the hospital, is constantly demanding death, you've also followed along and made a mess. They don't understand things, yet you also follow them? If your daughter is wanting to die and wanting to live for a man, then just let her die. The Campbell family isn't without other descendants. Your daughter is already at this age, yet she hasn't learned anything, only learning those bad things. Not respecting her brother-in-law, not saying anything, even bullying the elders. How have you raised them all these years? Hearing her mom and younger sister being scolded, Sarah Campbell's heart became even more unbearable, but just a glance from Campbell made her stand still. You and your sister, get into the study. I'll deal with you people later. In the empty living room, only Campbell and Mrs. Campbell remained. Campbell looked at the tearful wife before him, his eyes full of disappointment. Before going abroad, he knew that he would be very busy, so he had left behind the assistant and butler who had always followed him to help deal with the matters in the country. But in less than a month of being abroad, the assistant and butler had successively come to find him. Only then did he learn that Mrs. Campbell, upon taking office, had first fired the 2 of them, replacing them with her own people. After that, he heard overseas that Sarah Campbell had had 2 car accidents for her first love and had abandoned her husband. Only then did he realize that Sarah Campbell had been spoiled by Mrs. Campbell without her realizing it. The Campbell family had always been tough and decisive, not learning to be hindered by feelings, always putting the family's interests first. Even if they had suffered great emotional pain, they could quickly overcome it themselves, not rely on the help of a man for 5 years. As for Tiffany, over the years, she had also been running amok and bullying her classmates at school, and Mrs. Campbell would only give some money to settle with the people who were bullied, without saying a single harsh word to Tiffany. This also led to the fact that after I got married, I was bullied by these 2, and Mrs. Campbell, as an adult in the house, completely didn't manage. Later, I will stay in the country. If your health isn't good, then go to the farm to recuperate. Just one sentence decided the fate of Mrs. Campbell's final years. She looked at the man before her, tears streaming down her face. Do you hate me that much? Campbell looked at the wife before him. If I really hated you, the day I returned to the country, the divorce papers would have been placed before you. After saying that, he didn't look at Mrs. Campbell's reaction and went straight into the study. In the study, Sarah Campbell and Tiffany looked at their dad in silence. In the 2 sisters' memories, Dad had always been overseas, rarely returning home. They were closer to Mrs. Campbell. The atmosphere in the study was extremely heavy. The clock hand on the wall turned around and around. Later, you stay in Australia. I'll have someone keep your passport and other things. Without permission, you're not allowed to return to the country. As for you, Campbell raised his head to look at the daughter before him, in his eyes only remaining disappointment. Since you're chasing after a man, do you even look at the company's financial report? From now on, the position of general manager will temporarily be held by your uncle's son. You start from the bottom and work your way up. Whenever you have the ability, then talk about becoming general manager. The cards of both of you have been frozen. Each month, my assistant will transfer $10,000 in living expenses to you. The shares have also been temporarily withdrawn. Wait until both of you truly understand things, then talk. As Campbell said one sentence, Tiffany's expression became even paler. Sarah Campbell next to her didn't say anything, but her hand that was hanging by her side gripped tightly. The news of the general manager of Campbell being replaced quickly spread throughout high society. Willow excitedly told me while helping me pack my luggage. You've only been back for less than a month, yet you have to go back to Italy? I placed the last folded item into the suitcase. I can't not go. In the beginning, coming back to the country was only to hold an art exhibition with classmates. After the exhibition ends, I should have left already. But because there are many complicated things in the family, Lucas and wife can only stay in the country and wait until everything is resolved before going abroad to find me. Moreover, if I don't go, I'll definitely see Sarah Campbell again. Now she's not the general manager anymore, so she has even more free time. I really don't have the mind to continue dragging things out with her. I closed the suitcase, carrying it to the door. Willow hurriedly stepped forward, curiously looking at me. Do you still remember Tom Campbell? My action stopped. Tom Campbell, I hadn't heard this name in a long time. I only remembered that back then, Tom Campbell had followed his ex-wife back to the United States. After that. Looking at the woman before me, David, if there hadn't been the repayment of favor thing, if there hadn't been Tom Campbell, could we have been together? In her words, there was a trace of hope. But hearing something funny, I laughed. Each word, from the time you missed Tom Campbell for so many years, it was already decided that we wouldn't have a result. Through the rearview mirror, I clearly saw the woman's icy expression in the back seat. Moreover, even without these things, we still couldn't be together. As a wife, you didn't understand anything about me. You didn't know what I was allergic to, didn't know my phone number, and didn't know what to give me. From beginning to end, you've never cared about me, treating me as air. It's only because I've been good to you for these 5 years that you feel uncomfortable when I leave. That's not true liking. What's true liking? It's being loyal from beginning to end, it's taking true feelings to exchange for true feelings, it's being able to clearly remember every one of my affairs, it's getting rid of all the unfavorable factors when deciding to want to grow old with me, resolutely standing on my side, believing me, protecting me, listening to my explanation when we have misunderstandings, and when I'm in trouble, being able to resolutely and without hesitation choose me. How many of these things could you do? A young lady who was carefully raised from childhood only thinks about how others can love her, never thinking about how she has to love others. If Sarah Campbell knew even a little bit, she wouldn't, in the state of being married, have repeatedly gone abroad to find her first love, also wouldn't, in the state of the first love being married, have secretly gone to comfort him, causing unnecessary misunderstandings for Tom Campbell's wife. I completely didn't care about her reaction, still continuing to speak. If there wasn't this repayment of favor thing, we wouldn't have met at all. I would have had my own life. Sarah Campbell blankly looked at me, bitterness filling her throat. She moved her lips, wanting to say something, but in the end still couldn't say it, only silently watching me open the door and get out of the car. Just as I was about to enter the villa, a beam of light shone intensely on my face. Instinctively, I raised my hand to shield my eyes, then heard a sharp sound of brakes and Sarah Campbell's panicked voice. David. The culprit who caused the car accident was Tiffany. Right now, she had been blinded by dissatisfaction. Thinking that all of these things were caused by me, she didn't care about anything anymore, wanting to break free from the restraint of the bodyguard. Who knew that she would be pushed aside by Sarah Campbell, who acted quickly. Besides a few light scratches, I didn't have any other injuries. On the contrary, Sarah Campbell, because Tiffany continued to step on the gas, not only had both her legs crippled but also had to lie in the intensive care unit for over a month. Without waiting for the Liu and To families to take action, upon learning this news, Campbell had directly sent Tiffany to prison. As for when she would be released, it was unknown. During the time she was hospitalized, I had also visited Sarah Campbell. After all, she had risked her life to save me. Looking at the person full of breathing tubes, I often sighed, my eyes full of complexity. The words I had said in the car that day, Sarah Campbell had finally listened to them, but for me, it was still too late, too late. Sarah Campbell saving me was also just a belated compensation. I looked at her for a long time, finally getting up to leave. Because she had a car accident, my original plan to go to Italy was forced to be postponed. In the following months, I still stayed to take care of her. One morning, I heard that Sarah Campbell had woken up. Upon learning that the person who had hit her was Tiffany and that her own legs had been crippled, she didn't have any reaction. On the contrary, she was very quiet. Until this day, I was packing my luggage again, but found a ring in the drawer. This was the ring I had found when jumping into the sea that year. Later, Sarah Campbell had used this ring to propose to me. Because it hadn't been well maintained in the 7 years, the diamond embedded on the ring had long fallen off. The ring body had also rusted. I looked at this ring for a long time. Perhaps the question Sarah Campbell asked me in the car that day, this ring was the best answer. In these 5 years of marriage, there had always only been me single-mindedly contributing. She only enjoyed the fruits from my contribution. Without the care of both sides, our marriage had long become like this ring, rusted. Therefore, whether there were those external factors or not, our marriage, without her contribution, simply couldn't have gone to the end. I put the ring in a box, having the butler transfer it back to Sarah Campbell. Upon seeing this ring, Sarah Campbell was stunned for a long time. In her memory, she had never given me any gift. The only ring had even been transferred by her to Tom Campbell. A friend who came to visit her, upon seeing this ring, suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't this the ring we threw into the sea during the bet that year?" She stared intently at the ring in her hand, suddenly also remembering that day. That day, because of a bet, they had thrown this ring into the sea, promising that whoever brought the ring up would get the land in the north of the city. Although it was a bet, they had still carefully tied the ring to a fishing line, using a fishing rod to throw it into the sea. But even so, no one dared to jump into the sea, except for me. I calmly asked the person who had proposed this bet, was this bet real? After receiving a definite answer and pressing the button on the land transfer contract, I had jumped into the sea without hesitation. Seeing the thin person being swallowed by the sea, the hand she was gripping on the railing became pale in an instant. Unprecedented panic rose in her heart. At that moment, she even wanted to jump into the sea after me, but the next second, I had risen from the sea surface, my hand still tightly gripping that ring. The moment she tightly hugged me, her heart was filled with fear, along with an indescribable emotion, afraid that I would disappear into the sea. It wasn't until now that she knew that the emotion at that time was liking, was love. It turned out that from the time I had jumped into the sea to find the ring, she had already liked me. Belated memories flooded her entire body. She hugged her face, sobbing. It wasn't until late at night that the butler returned to the Liu residence. Also returning with the butler was a car full of gifts. I looked at these gifts, not understanding. The butler hurriedly explained, after seeing that wedding ring, Ms. Campbell cried for a long time. In the end, she called people to prepare a car full of gifts to compensate you. I looked at the pile of gifts for a long time, finally opening them one by one. It was at this moment that I discovered that the compensations from Sarah Campbell included my years from the age of 1 to 18. In addition, in the 5 years of marriage, she had also prepared corresponding gifts for my birthday, wedding anniversary, New Year, and Valentine's Day. Every item was something I liked. Just one phone call could solve everything, yet she had suppressed it for 7 years. I put the last gift down, got up, and told the butler, "Take everything and sell it. Donate the money to the orphanage immediately." The date of my departure was getting closer and closer. Not knowing when we would be able to meet again, Lucas and Willow had given up all their work to take me all over the city, from the sunset by the sea to the highest point of the Ferris wheel, from the candied haws on the street to the desserts at the high-end restaurant. This was the happiest period in my more than 20 years of life. Willow was placing food into my bowl, also advising me, "Eat more. Once you go abroad, it will be difficult to eat this taste. Although they had arranged for a chef and a helper to go with me, wanting to create the exact same taste in a foreign land was impossible. I obediently nodded, each bite